I stared into the mirror, my heart pounding like a trapped bird against my ribs, as the unfamiliar curve of lace brushed against my skin, whispering secrets I wasn't ready to hear. It all started innocently enough, or so I thought, when Aunt Eliza called me out of the blue last summer, her voice bubbling with that infectious enthusiasm she always had, insisting I come stay with her for a week while my parents were away on their anniversary trip. "It'll be fun, darling," she'd cooed over the phone. "Just you and me, like old times." I was 22, fresh out of college, aimless and eager for any distraction from the job hunt drudgery, so I packed a bag and drove the 3 hours to her quirky Victorian house on the edge of town, nestled among overgrown gardens that smelled of lavender and forgotten dreams. Little did I know, she had plans brewing, ones that would unravel the threads of who I thought I was. Aunt Eliza greeted me at the door with open arms, her silver hair tied in a loose bun, wearing one of her signature flowing dresses that made her look like a character from a fairy tale. She was my mother's older sister, a retired theater costume designer who'd spent her life crafting illusions for the stage, and her home was a treasure trove of fabrics, wigs, and props that spilled from every closet. Come in, my dear Alex," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled of chamomile tea and old silk. We spent the first evening catching up over homemade pie, talking about everything from my failed internships to her latest hobby, reviving vintage fashion for a local charity event. It felt warm, familiar, like slipping into a well-worn sweater. But as the night wore on, her eyes sparkled with a mischief I should have recognized from childhood pranks. The next morning, she woke me early with the aroma of fresh coffee wafting up the stairs. "Alex, love, I need your help with something," she called from the kitchen. I stumbled down in my pajamas, rubbing sleep from my eyes, and found her surrounded by bolts of fabric and sketches scattered across the table. "The charity gala is in 3 days, and my model bailed on me last minute. You're about the right height. Would you mind trying on a few pieces? Just for fit, nothing more." I laughed it off at first, thinking she meant men's suits or something neutral. "Sure, Aunt Eliza, whatever you need." But as she led me to her sewing room, the air grew thick with the scent of pressed linen and anticipation. She handed me what looked like a simple shirt, but as I slipped it on, I realized the cut was softer, the fabric clinging in ways that felt alien yet oddly comforting. "It's unisex," she assured me with a wink, but her smile held a secret. As I stood there, she fussed with pins and measurements, her hands moving like a conductor's, and I caught my reflection in the full-length mirror across the room. My usual messy hair seemed out of place against the elegant lines, and a flicker of unease stirred in my chest. "This feels different," I muttered, but she brushed it aside. "Nonsense, it's just cloth. Now, let's try the pants." Except they weren't pants. They were wide-legged trousers that swished with every step, blurring the edges of familiarity. Inner voices clashed in my mind. Part of me wanted to bolt, to reclaim my jeans and t-shirt, but another part, quieter and curious, wondered what it would be like to see this through. Aunt Eliza chatted non-stop about the gala's theme, Masquerade of Identities, she called it, and how it was all about exploring hidden sides of ourselves. I didn't realize then that she was planting seeds, ones that would bloom into a storm of self-doubt and discovery. By afternoon, the fitting had escalated. She convinced me to try a vest that nipped at the waist, accentuating curves I didn't know I had. And then a scarf that she draped like a makeshift ascot. "See? You look dashing," she said, but her eyes appraised me with a knowing glint. I felt exposed, vulnerable, as if layers of my identity were being peeled away one garment at a time. My heart raced with a mix of embarrassment and intrigue. Why did this feel so wrong, yet so intriguing? I paced the room, the fabrics whispering against my skin, and caught myself posing slightly, testing the reflection. Aunt Eliza noticed, of course. "You're a natural, Alex. Just imagine if we added a touch more." That's when the trick revealed itself subtly. She accidentally spilled tea on my only pair of spare clothes, forcing me to wear the outfit while she washed them. Trapped in her web, I spent the rest of the day helping her, the clothes becoming a second skin, stirring whispers of conflict in my soul. Was this just a game, or was she seeing something in me I'd buried deep? As evening fell, we sat on the porch, the sunset painting the sky in hues of rose and gold, and I confessed my growing unease. "Auntie, this isn't me. I feel like I'm pretending." She took my hand, her expression softening into something profound. "Darling, sometimes pretending is the first step to understanding truth. Trust me a little longer." Her words lingered like fog, wrapping around my thoughts as I lay in bed that night, the soft fabric against my sheets a constant reminder. Little twists awaited, a neighbor dropping by unexpectedly, forcing me to hide. A mirror glance that made me pause, seeing not ridicule but potential beauty. The emotional tide pulled me under, waves of resistance crashing against budding acceptance, and I wondered if this visit would redefine everything. The morning sun filtered through Aunt Eliza's lace curtains, casting delicate shadows across the room as I woke to the realization that I was still wearing the clothes from yesterday, the soft trousers and fitted vest clinging to me like an unspoken promise. My heart stuttered as I sat up, the fabric shifting with my movement, a reminder of how far I'd strayed from the familiar comfort of my usual self. I wanted to change, to slip back into my own world, but Aunt Eliza's voice called from downstairs, bright and insistent. "Alex, darling, breakfast is ready, and we've got a big day ahead." Her tone carried that same mischievous lilt, and a knot of apprehension twisted in my stomach. What was she planning now? I glanced at the empty hook where my washed clothes should have been, still drying, she claimed last night, and realized I was stuck, caught in her carefully spun web of persuasion. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled of cinnamon and fresh bread, but the warmth of the scene was overshadowed by a new pile of garments on the table, shimmering under the morning light. Aunt Eliza stood there, her eyes gleaming with purpose. "Today's the dress rehearsal for the gala," she announced, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "And I've got something special for you to try." My throat tightened as she held up a long, flowing garment, a dress, unmistakably, in deep emerald green, its fabric catching the light like a forest at dawn. My breath caught, a surge of panic warring with an inexplicable curiosity. "Auntie, no way," I stammered, stepping back. I can't wear that." But her gaze was steady, not mocking, but encouraging, as if she saw something I couldn't. "It's just for the rehearsal, Alex. Humor me. You're helping an old woman make her vision come true." I stood frozen, my mind a battlefield of contradictions. Part of me wanted to run, to demand my jeans back, to reclaim the safety of who I'd always been. But another part, a quieter, more daring voice, whispered, what if I let go, just for a moment, and explored this strange new reflection of myself? Aunt Eliza's hands were gentle as she guided me to the sewing room, her touch grounding me even as my pulse raced. She helped me slip into the dress, the cool fabric cascading over my skin like water, transforming my silhouette in ways that felt both foreign and electrifying. She adjusted the shoulders, pinned the waist, and stepped back, her eyes misty with something I couldn't name. "Look at you," she murmured, and I turned to the mirror, bracing for ridicule but finding instead a stranger who was beautiful. The reflection wasn't me, not exactly, but it wasn't entirely someone else either. My short hair framed my face differently, softer somehow, and the dress hugged curves I'd never acknowledged. My cheeks flushed with a mix of shame and wonder, and I couldn't tear my eyes away. "This isn't right," I whispered, but my voice lacked conviction. Aunt Eliza stood behind me, her hands on my shoulders. "Right or wrong, it's just you, Alex, in a different light. Feel it. Let it speak to you." Her words stirred something deep, a longing I hadn't known existed, and I felt tears prick my eyes, not from sadness, but from the weight of confronting a truth I'd never dared to touch. The day unfolded in a blur of preparation. Aunt Eliza taught me how to move in the dress, how to carry myself with grace, her instructions laced with stories of her theater days, when costumes unlocked hidden facets of performers' souls. I stumbled at first, awkward and self-conscious, but her patience was unwavering. "It's not about pretending," she said, adjusting a seam. "It's about discovering." Yet the tension grew as the gala loomed closer. A neighbor stopped by again, this time lingering longer, and I ducked behind a curtain, heart pounding, terrified of being seen. What would they think? What would I think if they saw me like this? The fear of judgment clashed with the thrill of this new self, and I felt like I was teetering on the edge of a cliff, unsure whether to leap or retreat. By evening, Aunt Eliza introduced another twist, a pair of delicate heels and a wig she'd crafted herself, long and chestnut, cascading in soft waves. "Just try it," she urged, and against my better judgment, I let her style it onto me. The transformation was complete, and when I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize the person staring back. She was poised, radiant, a version of me that felt like a dream I'd never admitted to having. My hands trembled as I touched the wig, the reality of it sinking in. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Aunt Eliza smiled, her eyes crinkling with warmth. Because, Alex, sometimes we need a little push to see who we can be. The gala's tomorrow, and I think you're ready to shine. Her words hung in the air, a challenge and an invitation, as my heart wrestled with fear, excitement, and a growing sense of possibility. The morning of the gala dawned with a golden haze, the kind of light that made everything feel like it was holding its breath, waiting for something extraordinary to happen. I stood in Aunt Eliza's sewing room, the emerald dress clinging to me like a second skin, the chestnut wig framing my face in a way that still felt like a stranger's portrait. My stomach churned with a cocktail of dread and exhilaration, each heartbeat a reminder of the leap I was about to take. Aunt Eliza bustled around me, adjusting the hem, her fingers steady but her eyes alight with a pride that made my chest ache. "You're going to be the star of the night, Alex," she said, her voice soft but firm, as if she could will confidence into me. I wanted to believe her, but the mirror reflected a truth I wasn't sure I could embrace, a woman staring back, her expression caught between fear and fascination, her eyes searching for permission to exist. The hours leading up to the gala were a whirlwind of preparation and inner turmoil. Aunt Eliza coached me on posture, on how to glide rather than stride, her theater training turning every movement into a performance. "It's not about hiding who you are," she said, pinning a delicate brooch to the dress. "It's about revealing a part of you that's been waiting in the wings." Her words stirred the embers of curiosity that had been smoldering since this all began, but they also fanned the flames of doubt. What if I was seen, not just noticed, but seen, by someone who knew me? The thought sent a shiver down my spine, and I imagined the whispers, the judgment, the questions I wasn't ready to answer. Yet, as I practiced walking in the heels, the click-clack on the hardwood floor became a rhythm, a pulse that synced with a part of me I'd kept locked away. Aunt Eliza had one more surprise, because of course she did. She handed me a mask, delicate and silver, adorned with tiny crystals that caught the light like stars. "It's a masquerade, darling," she said with a grin. "No one needs to know who you are unless you want them to." The mask was a lifeline, a shield against the world's gaze, and as I tied it on, I felt a shift, like I could borrow this identity for a night without committing to it forever. But the weight of the moment pressed harder as we drove to the venue, a grand old theater downtown, its marquee glowing with the promise of transformation. My palms sweated as we approached, the murmur of the crowd spilling out into the night, and I gripped Aunt Eliza's arm, whispering, "I don't know if I can do this." She squeezed my hand, her voice steady. "You already are." Stepping into the theater was like crossing a threshold into another world. The air buzzed with laughter and music, chandeliers casting golden light over swirling gowns and masked faces. I felt exposed, every swish of the dress amplifying my presence, yet the mask gave me courage, a fragile armor against curious glances. Aunt Eliza introduced me as Alexandra, her voice lilting with pride, and I flinched at the name, so close yet so far from my own. People smiled, complimented the dress, asked about the designer. Aunt Eliza, of course, and I nodded, my voice soft and unfamiliar, each word a tightrope walk between authenticity and performance. A woman in a sapphire gown asked me to dance, and before I could protest, Aunt Eliza nudged me forward. My heart thundered as we moved to the music, her hand guiding me, and for a moment, I forgot to be afraid. The world blurred, and I was just me, swaying in a dress, feeling alive in a way I hadn't expected. But the night wasn't without its shadows. A man in a tuxedo, his mask askew, stared a little too long, his eyes narrowing as if trying to peel back my disguise. My breath hitched, and I excused myself, retreating to a quiet corner, my mind spiraling. Was I fooling anyone, or was I the fool? The weight of the wig, the dress, the heels, it all felt like a costume, but the emotions bubbling beneath were raw, undeniable. I wanted to run, to rip it all off and hide, but then Aunt Eliza found me, her presence a beacon. "You're doing beautifully," she whispered, and her belief in me was a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge. As the night wore on, I danced again, laughed, even spoke with strangers, each moment a step toward a self I was only beginning to understand, the tension between fear and freedom weaving a tapestry I couldn't yet read. The gala's lights dimmed as the evening deepened, and I found myself caught in a current of music and laughter, the silver mask a fragile veil between me and the world. Each step in the emerald dress felt like a declaration, each smile I offered a gamble, as I navigated the crowd with a grace I didn't know I possessed. Aunt Eliza hovered nearby, her presence a quiet anchor, but my heart still raced with the fear of being unmasked, not just the physical mask, but the deeper truth I was only beginning to glimpse. The dance floor swirled with strangers, their faces blurred behind their own disguises, and for fleeting moments, I felt free, as if this version of me, Alexandra, as Aunt Eliza called her, could exist without apology. But freedom is a fragile thing, and the night had more surprises waiting to test it. A soft voice broke my reverie, pulling me from the edge of the dance floor. "You look stunning," said a woman in a crimson gown, her mask adorned with feathers that quivered as she spoke. Her eyes were kind, but her words landed like a spark on dry grass, igniting a flush of warmth and panic. "Thank you," I murmured, my voice catching, unfamiliar even to myself. She tilted her head, studying me, and for a heart-stopping moment, I thought she saw through me, through the dress, the wig, the carefully curated facade. "Have we met before?" she asked, and my stomach dropped. I shook my head, forcing a smile, and excused myself, my heels clicking too loudly as I hurried toward the balcony for air. The cool night breeze stung my cheeks, and I gripped the railing, my mind a storm of questions. Was I betraying myself by embracing this, or was I betraying myself by resisting it? Aunt Eliza found me there, her silhouette framed by the glow of the theater behind her. "You're doing wonderfully, Alex," she said, but her voice held a note of concern. "What's troubling you?" I turned to her, the mask hiding my trembling lips but not the turmoil in my eyes. "I don't know who I am right now," I confessed, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. "This feels right, in a way I can't explain, but it also feels like I'm losing myself. What if this isn't just a costume? What if I'm not who I thought I was?" Her face softened, and she took my hands, her touch warm and steady. "My dear, sometimes we wear masks to hide, but sometimes we wear them to discover. You're not losing yourself, you're finding pieces you didn't know were there." Her words were a lifeline, but the current of doubt pulled stronger as the night wore on. A new challenge emerged when Aunt Eliza was called to the stage to present her designs, and she insisted I join her. My heart thudded as we stepped into the spotlight, the crowd's applause a roar in my ears. She spoke eloquently about the power of clothing to transform, to reveal hidden truths, and I stood beside her, the dress shimmering under the lights, feeling like a fraud and a revelation all at once. A man in the audience raised his hand, asking about the inspiration behind Alexandra's gown, and Aunt Eliza's eyes twinkled as she spun a story about embracing one's inner light. I smiled, nodding, but inside, I was unraveling. The weight of their gazes, their admiration, felt like both a gift and a burden, stirring a longing to be seen as this self, yet a fear of what that meant. As we stepped off the stage, a young woman approached, her mask dangling from her hand, revealing a face bright with curiosity. "You're incredible," she said, her voice earnest. "I've never seen someone carry a gown like that. Are you a model?" My throat tightened, and I shook my head, mumbling something about helping my aunt. But her sincerity lingered, planting a seed of wonder. What if this wasn't just a performance? What if this was a part of me I'd been too afraid to claim? The night ended with Aunt Eliza beaming, the gala a success, but as we drove home, silence settled between us, heavy with unspoken truths. I stared out the window, the mask in my lap, feeling the pull of two worlds, one familiar, one uncharted, and the question of where I belonged. The drive back to Aunt Eliza's house was quiet, the hum of the car a soft backdrop to the storm in my mind, the silver mask resting in my lap like a relic from a dream I wasn't sure I wanted to wake from. The gala had left me raw, my emotions tangled like threads in one of her sewing baskets, elation from the moments I'd felt truly alive, fear from the eyes that lingered too long, and a deep, aching question about who I was beneath the emerald dress and chestnut wig. I glanced at Aunt Eliza, her profile serene in the moonlight, and wondered how she'd known to push me into this, to unravel the edges of my carefully guarded self. The night air seeped through the cracked window, carrying the scent of jasmine, and I felt like I was standing on a precipice, one foot in the familiar, one trembling toward the unknown. Back at the house, I didn't change right away. I stood in the sewing room, the dress still clinging to me, the wig a soft weight on my shoulders. The mirror beckoned, and I faced it, searching the reflection for answers. The woman staring back, Alexandra, as Aunt Eliza had named her, wasn't just a costume anymore. Her eyes held a spark of recognition, a piece of me I'd buried under years of routine and expectation. My fingers traced the fabric, the smooth silk a contrast to the rough edges of my thoughts. Why does this feel so right? I whispered, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Aunt Eliza appeared in the doorway, her presence as steady as ever. Because, Alex, she said gently, sometimes the things we're most afraid to try are the things we've always needed. I sank onto a chair, the heels pinching my feet, and let the weight of the night spill out. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice trembling. What if this changes everything? What if I'm not me anymore? She knelt beside me, her eyes soft but unwavering. You're still you, darling. You're just seeing more of yourself. This isn't about becoming someone else, it's about embracing all the parts of you, even the ones you didn't know were there. Her words landed like a balm, soothing the raw edges of my fear, but they didn't erase the questions. What would my friends think? My parents? The world I'd built around Alex felt like a house of cards, trembling under the weight of this new truth. The next morning, I woke to find my clothes, my old, familiar jeans and t-shirt, folded neatly on the dresser, washed and ready. I could have slipped back into them, reclaimed the safety of the known, but something stopped me. Instead, I wandered to the sewing room, where Aunt Eliza was already at work, sketching designs for her next project. I don't know what to do now, I said, my voice small. She looked up, her smile warm but knowing. You don't have to decide today, Alex. Try things on, in here, she tapped her heart, and see what fits. She handed me a simple skirt, nothing dramatic, just a soft gray piece that felt like an invitation rather than a demand. I tried it on, paired it with one of my own shirts, and the blend of old and new felt like a bridge between worlds. The rest of the week was a quiet exploration, each day a step toward understanding. I wore the skirt around the house, then a blouse, then a mix of pieces, each choice a small act of courage. Aunt Eliza never pushed, but she was there, guiding me with stories of her own life, of the roles she'd played and the truths she'd found in them. I began to see the gala not as a trick, but as a gift, a chance to glimpse a part of myself I'd ignored. The tension didn't vanish. Every mirror glance brought a flutter of doubt, every imagined conversation with friends tightened my chest. But there was also joy, a quiet thrill in discovering a self that felt vibrant, whole, in ways I hadn't known I craved. As I packed to leave, I kept the skirt, folding it carefully into my bag, a symbol of the door I'd opened. Aunt Eliza hugged me at the door, her eyes glistening. You're always welcome back, Alex, whoever you choose to be. Driving home, the road stretched out like a question mark, and I didn't have all the answers. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid to ask them. The world felt bigger, my heart fuller, and the reflection in my rearview mirror held a promise. I was still me, but I was also more, and I was ready to find out what that meant. This concludes the story. Would you like me to provide any additional details, reflections, or perhaps explore a specific aspect further?